another episode of Blam Truckers. I'm Bees. I did it again.
Hi, Bees.
You
How you doing, Bees?
doing fine?
You're definitely family, Bees. So, I'm Bees. That's Buse. We're the Blam Truckers. We're coming at you here from Blam Trucker Land live via pre-recorded internet's delights here on the YouTubes and whatever other stations we put this out on. Some maybe even a little bit of that podcast mumbo jumbo you hear so little about on TV. And today we're going to be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender and what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it. But more than that, Buse and I last week we came up with the basics for how to run the rule set for how to run Avatar in a homebrew for D6. So the question I'm starting us out with today, for all you Blam Truckers out there, all you geekitudes keeping things positive and cool and what you love about all this geek stuff, a refuge for the loveliness of geekitude.
I am quite
question.
Lovely.
You are, especially that shirt.
Thank you.
What happened to your jacket? You're not a lieutenant today?
No, not today. I was demoted to crewman.
No Grogu on your shoulder?
No Grogu on my shoulder.
For you Blam Truckers out there who've been watching for a while, notice I pronounced it correctly that time with no double take. Grogu. That's right, folks. Grogu. Yes, I practiced this. Sadly. Okay, question I wanted to start off with. I'm not getting caught flat-footed again. I might if we do the subscribe song. Remember the subscribe song? Subscribe. Yep. Subscribe. Got it right that time. Question I want to start off with is a question for Buse, and I'm sure he'll turn around and ask it to me in a minute. If you were, as a GM, if you were going to set up a game in the world of Avatar, what time period would you set it up with, and what part of the world would it be in? Because the reason why I ask is because depending on the time period, you may not have access to air bisons, you may not have access to blimps, you may not have access to steam-powered vehicles, or only the Fire Nation does. And the only way to do fast travel would be magical animals that aren't magical but different animals that we don't have here in the real world. Because here in the real world, we don't have magical animals.
What are you talking about? There's a unicorn that lives back in my basement. But
what you call my cat is your business.
So I would set it. I'm gonna have to say post Korra, maybe like 100 years after Korra.
Wow.
Or maybe not even 100, and this is my reasoning.
I mean, you're talking about making things wide open.
Yes. And this is my reason why.
Okay.
One, I don't mind if they happen to do another series which overwrites stuff I played with. Yeah. Because it didn't exist at the time. But
we did that a lot with Star Wars over the years.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I was thinking. But if you do it a bit in the past, it means that, I know this sounds stupid, but at the very least, if I do it in the future, it can be canon in my head. Even if they come out with something in the future, then it's just alternate. If I do it in the past, thinking that this leads to the future, and they come out with some piece of lore, it just bothers me to know that it completely erased what I did. I don't mind it erasing it if I thought of it first, but I do mind it erasing it if it's something that they're like, well, this happened in the distant past. You know. I mean, but heck, they even changed some stuff in Korra from Avatar, but I won't go there. We don't talk about Korra. We don't talk about Korra, no.
So you're saying we should call Korra Voldemort? She who must not be named?
It's not... I'm just not as big a fan of the character. I like some of the characters in that show. And story-wise, I just didn't get into it as much as Avatar. But I have watched it, and I would set something post-Korra, maybe to a more modern to us setting. Korra is kind of like a blend of the 1920s as well as
The
everything
1800s.
from, yeah, it's like they've got like, regular cars and stuff, but if you look at Republic City, it's almost like a 1920s New York. There's weird stuff and differences going on because, again, there were motorized vehicles already. They were steam powered or whatever, but there were motorized vehicles
Mhm.
and stuff leading into it, including not personal, like regular people using it, but at least individual military vehicles that could be driven across, as we saw when Azula, May, and Ty Lee were chasing after, the Aang gang because Appa needed a good grooming brush. But
Shedding season for poor Alpha.
indeed,
So I have a problem with internal combustion engines in most historical fiction or fantasy worlds. Um, I live in a world and in the geek culture. I am in a unique place. I don't think very many other people are in, where I have a solid understanding of historical events, historical fiction, and the advancement of technology, and how that all came about, as well as my love for the rest of the geekitude, um, and philosophy and theology and science in general, and especially physics. Anyway, the internal combustion engine uh, could have been invented thousands of years ago. I mean, we're talking BC time periods here. 1,000 years before Christ, the internal combustion engine could have been invented. The first attempts at it were created then. Uh, we knew that because the first internal combustion engines were all steam engines, and some of them were external combustion engines, which is a whole other thing. But they needed to do was put steam in uh, a, a metal ball, put it on a stick with a pipe coming out of it with a little bit of a curve to it, and then heat that metal ball. That's an external combustion engine, and the heat from that will in turn make the ball spin. As you fill it up with water. As you heat the water turns to steam and the ball turns. First engine. And then if it's on a shaft, on a stick, then as that stick turns, you can put a gear on it and turn something. But external combustion engines are incredibly inefficient and not worth the cost. They would not become worth the cost. They would not be until England, the country of England, in real life, ran out of wood to cut down to use for heating homes and moved to coal, and got to the point where they got so far down into their coal mines. So this is quite a ways in, so far deep into their coal mines that they had enough excess coal left over for an inefficient way to run a pump to get the water out of the coal mines so they could dig down deeper. The first combustion engines that were ever used in any quantity for anything in human history were in England and under those circumstances, taking the combustion engine from being incredibly inefficient to efficient enough to actually be used in industry or for locomotion is a very particular series of events that did not happen anywhere else in the world because the circumstances weren't right to put in that much effort to create one. Pet peeve. It's one of the reasons why I'm annoyed by that. Whenever I see it, not just in Avatar, I usually just put that aside and ignore it and enjoy the story, and I can do that. But there you go. Drives me up a wall. And then the advancements they make into Korra are just like that wouldn't happen. But I let it go. It's fantasy. I get it. Not everybody needs to understand everything. It's okay. Would you like to know where I would set my campaign?
yes, please.
I would set it during the 100-Year War, during the War of the Fire Nation against the other three nations.
That's great. I mean, it means that you're limited to just the three basic bending: fire bending, air bending, or not air bending, fire bending, water bending, and earth bending.
Yep.
Unless
Depends on
somebody
when we
comes.
set it, actually. If we set it before not Ozai.
Sozin.
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 I knew it started with an S. If we set it before Sozin's attack on the Airbenders, we could even have some Airbender survivors from that attack.
And you still could have it afterwards, but I would make it that I would say you can't have this, then I would wait for one of my players to come up to me.
And make
we all
the
know
argument.
Who it would probably be. But I think Boo Man would probably make the argument if it was in our current group of friends that would play. But I would wait for them to make the argument, and I would have them write up I'd be like, you would need to write up a really good story in order for me to say yes to it.
GM's prerogative. Yeah. And he would. He can write one heck of a story.
Okay.
So I would set it then because that time period, despite the fact that we know a great deal about it, we don't know about almost any of the events during that time period. We also can assume that the Fire Nation did not win every single battle, so it gives our players the chance to be heroes and stop the Fire Nation's advance, because if they won every single battle, it wouldn't take them 100 years to conquer the world.
The fact that they still only had some colonies they had colonies in the Earth Nation, but they hadn't taken it over by that point because the Earth Nation was able to hold them back for so long. And
yeah.
And they would do raids to the Southern Water Tribe, not really the Northern Water Tribe because it was too powerful, but they would do raids.
Far away.
Yeah, they would do raids to the Southern Water Tribe, but they never establish any sort of. It seems like they never established any sort of outposts or anything there. They would just hit it with raids.
I think Ozai's goal and Sozin's goal, to a certain degree, was eliminating the Southern Water Tribe's waterbenders.
Yeah, well, and that's what they did. Yeah. They kept kidnapping them, and they were there, and that's pretty much the reason why Katara's mom was killed, was because Katara and Sokka's mom was killed because she said she was the waterbender, because they had heard that there was another waterbender in the Southern Tribe, because Katara was the only waterbender, because as we saw earlier in the series, they had kept just raiding and kidnapping them and bringing them to their prisons and such.
But that was still the generation before
That was pretty much Grand-Grand's generation, and Grand-Grand was the last of the raids
on the. Yeah. That was the last of the raids on the Southern Water Tribe. Was Grand-Grand's generation.
Until the raid when Katara was a little girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when it was that one of those last raids that we see, what's her name, who we meet later in the series and teaches the bloodbending. What?
Yeah, I said the bloodbender.
Yeah. They're the ones who actually capture the steamboat from the Fire Tribe. I'm sorry, Fire Nation. So, yeah, I think it would be a great time period. There's 100 years to play with. We have a villain. It's called the Fire Nation. So I don't have to come up with, new storylines. I mean, I do, but everybody knows the setting enough that if you've seen the first series, then, Avatar: The Last Airbender, not The Legend of Korra, or even read any of the comics, then you know the setting well enough. It's a great time to play in. People can still get the opportunity to be heroes, and even though eventually down the line they're going to lose, right now they're holding the Fire Nation in check.
Realistically, yeah, eventually down the line, but I mean, Ba Sing Se falls 3 months before it's retaken, so I mean,
yeah, Ba Sing Se. You also, I mean, depending on how much you want to get it into the actual how close you want to get to Avatar, to Aang's time period, you have the Siege of Ba Sing Se, which was done when, what's his name?
Iroh?
It wasn't that long ago, because Zuko was a child. Zuko and Azula were...
Right. It was when Iroh was more middle-aged or whatever.
Well, it was 6 to 8 years before the start of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because Zuko is 16 during Avatar: The Last Airbender at the start of it, and he was probably around 10 during the flashbacks for the siege of Ba Sing Se, when his uncle's doing the siege of Ba Sing Se. So that would be very late in the 100 Years' War. I probably wouldn't do that, but yeah, I'd have offenses back and forth. I'd probably set it on the western side of the Earth Nation continent, the main continent there, which is closest to the Fire Nation, and I'd let my players make whatever they wanted to make. There's no avatar, so we don't have to worry about that. And Aang's frozen in a block of ice somewhere. It's between the southern air temple and the southern water tribe. So yeah, you could make whatever you wanted to make. If we do it early enough, you could even make an airbender. Yeah. Maybe we don't even have mechanical boats yet, steam-powered boats yet. I don't know. Something to think about.
I like it.
Yeah. So, we're at 16 minutes here?
Yep.
Got anything you want to add? Anything you want to bring up about the series?
No, just regarding the series, if you have not watched Avatar, I know we may have given away little things here and there, but come on, the show's old enough. You probably have gotten some of this just from random stuff in your Facebook feed or Instagram feed or whatever kids are using these days. Your WhatsApp feed? I don't know. But,
WhatsApp? What's that?
Why, when I was your age, we didn't even have an internet. Just ARPANET. Nobody knew about that.
But yeah, I'd highly recommend watching the original Nickelodeon cartoon, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I myself am going to give the live action a shot. Hey, maybe next week you can ask me how I'm liking it.
There we go.
But yeah, it's a very good series, very very well written. It really felt like it was planned out.
Yeah,
it has the story continuity within the series is better than a lot of other series out there. And even though
live action shows.
Yep, and even though it was written for kids, as an adult, it is still a fun show to watch. But the nice thing is
a good story.
You can watch it with your kids, and there's going to be stuff you'll get, and there's going to be stuff that, I mean, you're going to get everything for the most part, but like your kids are going to be able to follow it because it's a show written for them. But as an adult, you might appreciate more of the political intrigue, the war stuff, and just the good storytelling. So I highly, highly, highly recommend. And for those of you who did watch it, there are comics out there which answers the question left at the end of the series, which they joke about during the first episode of Korra. What happened to Zuko's mother? Which
she got really drunk. No.
But I do recommend that the collection it's called The Search. I highly recommend it if you were a fan of Avatar, just to get the answer to that. It was fairly well written. It's not quite at the same tier as the show, but it is a solid comic book, and it's a good continuation, so I highly recommend.
So for all you Blam Blam truckers out there, down in the comments below, let us know when would you set your game? If you were running a Avatar: The Last Airbender role-playing game, when would you set it and why? And we'll read those comments and maybe respond to them on the air, and maybe not. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. But we'd love to hear what you have to say. And if you got nothing else, I'm going to do my normal plug.
Okay,
that's
go
right.
for it.
In case you haven't heard it yet, you get to hear it now. If you've heard it before, you get to hear it again. I would like to pitch a movie to David Zaslav or whoever's in charge of movies over at Warner Brothers. I have an idea for a DC movie, DC superhero movie. I think I could do it pretty cheap. I've got some good concepts, and I'd love if anybody out there in Blam Blam Truckerland knows how I would be able to get in contact with those people. Please let me know. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you, truckers. Like, share, subscribe, and have a wonderful day.
Keep on.